Tonight, federal agents have exposed a $400 million criminal network operating in American suburbs.
3:47 a.m., Johns Creek, Georgia. The streetlights hummed. A man walked to his car. No one watched. No one knew. But federal agents had been watching for 11 months. What they were about to uncover would expose the largest Chinese-linked drug and money laundering pipeline ever discovered in the American South. A network worth over $410 million, a system that turned quiet neighborhoods into poison factories. Let me show you how it happened. The operation stretched across 6 states. It connected Mexican cartels to Chinese chemical suppliers. It used underground banking systems older than the internet, and it ran through Georgia like a hidden river, poisoning communities from Atlanta to Augusta. If you want the full truth about how foreign criminal networks operate on American soil, hit like so this story reaches more people who need to see it. The first signs appeared in October 2023. DEA analysts noticed something unusual. Fentanyl seizures in Georgia had doubled in 6 months. But the drugs weren't coming through the usual routes. No border busts, no highway interdictions. The poison was appearing already inside the country. At the same time, customs data showed a pattern. Shipments labeled as industrial cleaning supplies were flooding into Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. 300% increase in 12 months. All from the same regions in China, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Shanghai. On paper, everything looked legal. In the lab, chemical tests told a different story. The shipments contained precursor compounds, the raw materials needed to cook synthetic opioids, the building blocks of death. Homeland Security Investigations opened a case file. The code name was Operation Dragon Pipeline. The investigation would take 14 months. It would involve over 200 federal agents, and it would reveal something authorities had never seen before in the Southeast: a fully integrated Chinese manufacturing and distribution network operating inside suburban America. Georgia wasn't chosen by accident. Federal intelligence reports show why the state became a target. Atlanta sits at the crossroads of I-75, I-85, and I-20. Major rail lines converge there. The airport handles more cargo than almost anywhere in America, and the population density provided perfect cover. By early 2024, investigators believed Mexican trafficking organizations had formed a partnership. The Sinaloa cartel provided distribution networks. Chinese suppliers provided chemicals and expertise. Underground Chinese banking groups moved the money. Each piece operated independently, but together they formed a machine that would generate over $410 million in 2 years. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday, February 13, 2024. Surveillance teams from ICE followed a silver SUV through Duluth. The driver was Ha Mingchen, a 48-year-old courier who appeared on customs manifests linked to 17 different shell companies. He drove for 6 hours that night, I-85 north, I-985, back roads through Gwinnett County. He stopped 4 times. Each stop lasted exactly 12 minutes. At each location, he carried in a briefcase. He came out with shopping bag. Agents watched through thermal imaging. The briefcase registered cold. The shopping bags registered warm, body temperature warm. They were watching money move. Comment exposed below. If you believe Americans deserve to know what's happening in their neighborhoods, federal prosecutors later obtained warrants for Ha's phone records. What they found shocked veteran investigators. Over 800 calls to numbers in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. Encrypted messaging apps with military-grade security. GPS data showing visits to 47 residential addresses across metro Atlanta. But it was the financial records that changed everything. Bank statements showed Ha had moved $23.7 million to 15 different accounts in 14 months. Money came in through wire transfers labeled as consulting fee, equipment purchases, export services. Money went out in structured cash withdrawals, always under $10,000, always from different branches. The pattern was textbook money laundering, but the scale was unprecedented for Georgia. On March 4, 2024, at 6:18 a.m., HSI executed the first search warrant. Hayes' apartment in Norcross. Agents knocked. No answer. A battering ram struck the reinforced steel door. Once, twice. On the third hit, the frame shattered. Inside, they found $847,000 in cash, vacuum-sealed in closets, hidden in air vents, stuffed inside furniture. They found ledgers, handwritten records in Mandarin and English, names, addresses, amounts, dates. They found phone, 17 burner devices, each with a single contact list. And they found something else, something that made agents call for backup immediately. A list of residential addresses, 34 properties across Georgia. Next to each address, a number. The numbers ranged from 50 to 200. investigators realized what they were looking at: production quotas. This wasn't just money laundering. This was manufacturing. The deeper agents dug, the more the network revealed itself. Each phone led to 10 more contacts. Each contact led to 3 more locations. The operation had layers within layers. Couriers who didn't know cooks, cooks who didn't know distributors, distributors who didn't know bankers. It was compartmentalized, professional, sophisticated. Type yes if you're ready to see how deep this really goes. Within 48 hours, surveillance teams had identified 17 properties flagged as high-priority targets. The addresses read like a tour of Georgia's wealthiest suburbs: Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Suwannee, Milton, Roswell. Homes valued between $600,000 and $1.2 million. 3-car garages, manicured lawns, neighborhood watch signs. Behind those doors, federal agents believed they would find industrial-scale drug production. On March 11th, teams began deploying technical surveillance equipment: thermal cameras mounted on utility poles, audio sensors disguised as cable boxes, drone overflights using infrared imaging. The results confirmed their worst fears. One property in Johns Creek showed heat signatures consistent with chemical reactions. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The temperature readings indicated industrial processes requiring constant ventilation. Another property in Alpharetta had electricity usage 7 times higher than neighboring homes. The power draw matched commercial-grade equipment: mixers, dryers, industrial fans. A third property in Gwinnett County had reinforced windows, blackout curtains, and a ventilation system venting directly into the attic. Residents 2 houses away reported a chemical smell they assumed was fertilizer. It wasn't fertilizer. Federal command made the decision. The network was too large to dismantle pieces. They needed a coordinated strike, maximum pressure, overwhelming force. The operation was scheduled for September 18, 2024. 3:14 a.m. Nearly 140 locations would be hit simultaneously across Georgia, the largest coordinated law enforcement action in state history. FBI, DEA, ATF, ICE, HSI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, local sheriff's departments, nearly 300 agents. The targets included residential labs, stash houses, distribution hubs, financial fronts, transportation nodes, and the planners knew something else. They expected resistance. At 3:13 a.m., teams moved into position. The night was humid. Fog rolled through neighborhoods in North Fulton County. Engines idled. Radios crackled with whispered confirmations. Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Duluth, Norcross, Lawrenceville, Monroe, Augusta. At 3:14 a.m., the raids began. If you want to understand how federal operations actually work, hit like now before YouTube buries this. In Johns Creek, the first team approached a 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch. Lights off, no movement inside. The lead agent signaled. A battering ram swung forward. The door exploded inward. Agents flooded inside, guns drawn, flashlights cutting through darkness. Federal agents, search warrant. The living room was gone, stripped to concrete. Steel tables lined the walls. Industrial mixers sat in the center. Chemical drums were stacked floor to ceiling. The smell hit them immediately. Acrid, burning, toxic. One agent vomited inside his gas mask. They found 3 individuals in the basement: 2 men, 1 woman, all wearing respirators and chemical suits. They surrendered without resistance. In the kitchen, agents found scales, pill presses, vacuum sealer, and finished product. Thousands of counterfeit pills stamped to look like prescription medication. Lab techs who arrived later estimated the fentanyl concentration at 87%. A single pill could kill 5 people. At the Alpharetta location, the raid went differently. Agents breached the front door at 3:16 a.m. The house was dark, silent, too silent. Thermal imaging showed no heat signatures. The property appeared empty. But the power consumption data said otherwise. Equipment was running. Agents moved room by room. Ground floor clear, second floor clear. Then they found the basement entrance, hidden behind a false wall in the garage, a hydraulic door designed to blend seamlessly with drywall. It took bolt cutters to open the security panel. Inside, a staircase descended 20 feet underground. At the bottom, a steel door, industrial grade, reinforced. This wasn't a house. This was a bunker. The breach team used explosive charges. The door blew inward with a concussion that shook the foundation. Smoke filled the stairwell. What they found inside made veteran agents stop in their tracks. A fully operational underground laboratory, climate-controlled, ventilated, soundproof, 5 industrial-grade synthesis stations, chemical storage capable of holding 500 kilograms of precursors, a drying room with commercial dehumidifiers, a packaging station with vacuum sealers and commercial scales, and inventory. Wall-to-wall shelving filled with finished product. Lab teams later calculated the street value. Conservatively, $47 million in fentanyl and methamphetamine. 1 house, 1 basement. Enough poison to devastate the entire East Coast. Share this so more people understand what's operating in American neighborhoods right now. The operation continued through dawn. By 7 a.m., authorities had secured 89 of the 140 targeted locations. Arrests were climbing rapidly. Evidence collection had already filled 3 cargo trucks, but some targets didn't go quietly. In Monroe, agents surrounded a warehouse registered as a furniture storage facility. The building had reinforced doors, surveillance cameras on every corner, and steel shutters over the windows. At 3:25 a.m., the breach team moved in. The front door was reinforced steel. The battering ram bounced off. They called for the armored vehicle. A Lenco Bearcat rolled forward. The ram mounted on the front smashed through the loading dock door. Inside, agents found 4 individuals attempting to destroy evidence. Documents burning in metal drums, hard drives being smashed with hammers, cash being stuffed into duffel bags. One suspect ran. He made it 15 feet before a K-9 unit took him down. The evidence they tried to destroy told the story anyway. Ledgers showing transactions totaling $81.3 million over 18 months. Names of corrupt officials, payment schedule, bank routing numbers for accounts in 7 countries, and something else. Shipping manifests for Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Over 200 cargo shipments. All cleared through the same customs broker. All labeled as industrial equipment or cleaning supplies. Federal investigators immediately flagged the broker for criminal review. By the time the sun rose over Atlanta, the scope of the operation became clear. Authorities reported 127 arrests in the first wave, 12 tons of narcotics seized, over 1.4 million counterfeit pills, 380 firearms, and $31.7 million in cash and assets. But the numbers only told part of the story. The raids had uncovered something far more disturbing. A production and distribution network that operated with corporate efficiency, supply chains, quality control, logistics coordination, financial auditing. This wasn't a gang. This was a multinational business. Federal prosecutors reviewing the evidence later described it as the most sophisticated drug operation ever discovered in the southeastern United States. Comment justice below if you believe criminals need to face consequences. The financial investigation revealed how the money moved, and it was brilliant in its simplicity. Money started with street-level dealers. Cash flowed up to distribution hubs. From there, it moved into what investigators called collection nodes, businesses that appeared legitimate but existed solely to aggregate drug proceeds. Nail salons in Duluth reporting $90,000 in monthly revenue. An entertainment venue in Chamblee that claimed to host private parties but had no liquor license and no event permits. A spa in Midtown with 6 employees, but revenue exceeding $1.2 million annually. None of it was real. The businesses were shells, fronts designed to create a paper trail. Cash went in, wire transfers came out. The money moved to accounts held by other shell companies registered in Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming. From there, it jumped overseas. Homeland Security financial analysts traced the flow. Money landed in accounts in Hong Kong, then moved to banks in Singapore, then to Mexico City, then back to the United States through cryptocurrency exchanges. The money never stopped moving, and with each hop it became harder to trace. But agents found the map. Inside the Norcross Trucking Company raided on September 18th, investigators discovered a laptop. Encrypted, triple-layer security. Forensic teams cracked it in 11 days. The files inside contained the full financial architecture, every account, every shell company, every transfer. 2 years of records showing exactly how $410 million moved through the system. And it revealed something else. Names, corporate officers, notaries, lawyers, accountants, customs brokers. Some of those names belong to American citizens, professionals with licenses, people with security clearances. The corruption went deeper than drugs and money. It went into institutions. Federal officials have not released those names publicly. Multiple investigations are ongoing. Grand juries have been convened. Subpoenas are being served. But sources close to the case say indictments are coming. And they will shock people. The airport connection was perhaps the most troubling discovery. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport handles more than 2.5 million tons of cargo every year. On an average day, 3,200 cargo pallets move through the facility. The volume creates opportunities, and traffickers exploited every one. Investigators found that the network used cargo shipments both for import and export. Precursor chemicals came in from China labeled as cleaning supplies or industrial solvents. Finished drugs went out to international destinations labeled as textiles, electronics, or machine parts. The export side was particularly lucrative. Methamphetamine produced in Georgia could sell for 300 times its domestic value in Australia or Japan. A kilogram that sold for $3,000 in Atlanta sold for $900,000 in Sydney. Couriers were paid $150,000 per trip. Some made 20 trips before they were detected. If this shocks you, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Federal authorities identified at least 17 individuals working in airport cargo operations who had connections to the network. Security screeners, customs inspectors, cargo handlers, logistics coordinators. Some received payments, others were coerced. A few were simply compromised through relationships they didn't fully understand. But the result was the same. The network had access. They could move shipments with reduced scrutiny. They could time deliveries to avoid certain inspectors. They could reroute cargo through less monitored facilities. For years, Atlanta's airport was an open door. The human cost of the operation is still being calculated. Georgia saw a 73% increase in fentanyl-related deaths between 2022 and 2024. Overdose rates in metro Atlanta spiked to levels comparable to major border cities. Emergency rooms reported a surge in overdose cases involving counterfeit pills. Many victims thought they were taking prescription medication. They had no idea they were ingesting industrial-grade fentanyl. One Johns Creek mother lost her 19-year-old son in March 2024. He bought what he thought was Xanax from a friend. The pill contained enough fentanyl to kill him in minutes. She found him in his bedroom. No note, no warning, just gone. Stories like hers multiplied across the state. Families destroyed, communities traumatized, and the network didn't care. Profit was the only metric that mattered. Federal prosecutors have filed charges against 127 individuals. The counts include drug trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy, racketeering, and corruption. If convicted, many defendants face life sentences, but trials are years away. Defense attorneys are already filing motions. Discovery will take months. Witnesses need protection. Evidence must be authenticated. Justice moves slowly. The damage was instant. Type accountability. If you believe everyone involved should face trial. The raids also exposed Georgia's role as a distribution hub. The drugs produced and consolidated in metro Atlanta didn't stay there. They moved out along highways and rail lines to cities across the East Coast. Investigators tracked shipments to Charlotte, Raleigh, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston. The network had regional distribution cells in each city, local teams that moved the product from stash houses to street dealers. Each cell operated independently. If one was compromised, the others continued. It was resilient by design. Federal agents are now working with law enforcement in 17 states to dismantle the downstream network. Additional arrests are expected. More raids are being planned. But authorities acknowledge the challenge. For every distribution cell they shut down, another one forms. The demand for synthetic opioids is relentless, and as long as demand exists, suppliers will find a way. The case also revealed connections to Mexican cartels. Wiretaps and seized communications showed coordination between the Chinese network and the Sinaloa cartel. The cartel provided muscle, security, transportation infrastructure. In return, they received access to high-purity methamphetamine at wholesale prices. The partnership was mutually beneficial, and it was expanding. Intelligence reports suggest similar networks are operating in Texas, California, and Florida. The Georgia case may be the first major exposure, but it's likely not the only one. Federal agencies are now conducting assessments in other states, looking for the same patterns, the same red flags: chemical shipments from China, underground banking flows, residential properties with abnormal power usage, cargo anomalies at airports. The playbook has been exposed. Now investigators know what to look for. The arrests in Georgia sent shockwaves through criminal networks nationwide. Encrypted communications intercepted after September 18th show panic. References to shutting down operations, orders to clear houses, instructions to cut ties. The network knew it was vulnerable, but authorities also know the network will adapt. New routes will be established, new locations will be found, new methods will be developed. This is not a problem that ends with one operation. Share this video so more communities understand the scope of what's happening. The case raises fundamental questions about security and oversight. How did a network this large operate undetected for 2 years? How did industrial labs run in suburban neighborhoods without anyone noticing? Part of the answer is compartmentalization. The network operated in cells. No single person knew the full scope. If one person was arrested, they could only reveal their small piece. Part of the answer is corruption. When people inside institutions are compromised, oversight fails. And part of the answer is volume. The sheer scale of commerce, travel, and cargo movement creates opportunities. Criminals exploit the noise. Federal officials are now reviewing protocols. Airport security measures are being enhanced. Financial monitoring systems are being upgraded. Interagency communication is being improved, but fixes take time, and criminals adapt faster than bureaucracies. The investigation is ongoing. Grand juries are hearing evidence. Additional charges are expected, and federal prosecutors have made it clear anyone connected to the network will be held accountable. But accountability doesn't undo the damage. Families have lost loved ones. Communities have been poisoned. Trust in institutions has been weakened. The line between legitimate business and criminal enterprise was blurred, and the question remains: how many other networks are out there? How many other cities are being used as hubs? How many other airports are compromised? How many other neighborhoods have labs hidden behind suburban facades? The Georgia case pulled back the curtain. What it revealed should terrify every American. If you believe this story needs to reach more people, hit like right now. From a strategic perspective, the operation demonstrates a shift in how drug trafficking works in the 21st century. This isn't about mules crossing borders. It's about supply chain, logistics, finance. The modern drug trade operates like a Fortune 500 company. It has suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, marketing, customer service, and it has billions of dollars to invest in infrastructure. The Georgia network had access to chemists, engineers, accountants, lawyers, technology specialists, people with skills and education who chose to use their expertise for crime. They were paid well. Seized financial records show salaries ranging from $50,000 for entry-level couriers to $500,000 for senior logistics coordinators. The money is staggering, and it corrupts everything it touches. Federal investigators now believe the network had been operating since at least 2021. That means 3 years of unchecked growth, 3 years of production, 3 years of distribution, 3 years of death. The $10 million figure is conservative. It only counts money that left a traceable record. Cash transactions, underground transfers, and cryptocurrency flows are much harder to quantify. The real number could be twice as high. And all of it was built on American suffering. The philosophical question at the heart of this case is simple. How do we stop something we can barely see? Traditional law enforcement tactics work. Raids, arrests, and prosecutions disrupt operations. But they don't eliminate demand. They don't address the underlying economic incentives. As long as synthetic opioids are cheap to produce and profitable to sell, someone will produce and sell them. The Georgia case is a victory, but it's one battle in a war that shows no signs of ending. Comment truth below if you're ready to face what's really happening. For Georgia residents, the revelations have been jarring. The idea that industrial drug labs were operating in million-dollar homes is difficult to process. These were neighborhoods where children played, where families felt safe. That sense of security is gone. Community meetings held in the wake of the raids have been tense. Residents demand answers. How did this happen? Who knew? Why didn't authorities act sooner? The answers are complicated. Investigations take time. Building cases requires evidence. Moving too soon risks alerting suspects and losing the network. But those explanations feel insufficient when your neighbor's house was a fentanyl lab. Trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Local officials are now working to restore confidence. Increased patrols, community policing initiatives, public awareness campaigns about the signs of drug operations. But the damage is done. The illusion of safety has been shattered, and the reality is this: Georgia is not unique. If it happened there, it's happening elsewhere. Federal agencies are now conducting nationwide assessments. They're looking at cargo pattern, financial flows, real estate purchases, power consumption data. They're building profiles of what these networks look like. And they're sharing intelligence with state and local partners. The goal is to identify and dismantle networks before they reach the scale of what was discovered in Georgia. But resources are limited, criminals are sophisticated, and the profit margins are too high to ignore. This fight will take years, maybe decades. If you believe Americans deserve to know the truth, hit subscribe so you don't miss updates on this case. The judicial process will be slow. Defense attorneys will challenge evidence. They'll question search warrants. They'll argue entrapment. They'll seek plea deals. Some defendants will cooperate. They'll provide information in exchange for reduced sentences. That information will lead to new investigations, new arrests, new revelations. The network will continue to unravel for years, but convictions are not guaranteed. Trials are unpredictable. Juries can be swayed. Witnesses can recant. And even if every defendant is convicted, the network will adapt. New leaders will emerge, new routes will open, new methods will be developed. This is the reality of modern organized crime. It's hydra-headed. Cut off one limb to grow back. The only sustainable solution is to reduce demand. And that requires addressing addiction as a public health crisis, not just a criminal justice problem. But that's a policy debate for another day. For now, the Georgia case stands as a stark warning. Foreign criminal networks are operating inside the United States with sophistication and scale that most people can't imagine. They're using our infrastructure against us. Our roads, our airports, our financial systems, they're hiding in plain sight, behind suburban facades, inside legitimate-looking businesses, and they're making billions while Americans die. The FBI, DEA, HSI, and their partners did exceptional work on this case. They identified the network, they built the case, they executed the operation, but they can't do it alone. Communities need to be vigilant, report suspicious activity, pay attention to what's happening in your neighborhoods. If something doesn't look right, it probably isn't. Hit like if you believe justice is worth fighting for, no matter how long it takes. The Georgia case will be studied for years in law enforcement academies, in intelligence courses, in policy seminars. It represents both a success and a failure. A success because the network was exposed and dismantled, because criminals were arrested, because drugs were taken off the streets. A failure because it operated undetected for years, because people died, because institutions were compromised. The lessons are clear. We need better coordination between agencies, better financial monitoring, better intelligence sharing, better community engagement. We need to treat drug trafficking as the national security threat it is, because it's not just about drugs, it's about sovereignty. It's about the ability of foreign actors to operate inside our borders with impunity. It's about whether we control what happens in our own country. The $410 million Chinese-linked network in Georgia was just one example. One network, one state. How many others are out there? How many are operating right now in communities across America, producing poison and destroying lives? That's the question that should keep every American awake at night. This case is not over. Investigations continue. More arrests are coming. More revelations will emerge. And the fight against synthetic opioids and the criminal networks that profit from them will continue long after the headlines fade. If you want to stay informed, subscribe to this channel. We'll bring you updates as they develop. We'll expose what the mainstream media ignores, because these stories matter, and the truth needs to be told. Comment never stop if you're committed to staying informed about what's really happening in America. Share this video before it gets buried. And remember, the Georgia case is just the beginning. The networks are vast. The corruption runs deep. The danger is real. This is only the first chapter in a much longer story. Stay vigilant, stay informed, stay engaged. The fight for American communities continues.